So, welcome everyone, those joining the recording and those present with me here today. My name is Drew Didle, and this is the information session about the mind body skills groups. And starting next Monday on June the 30th, we will begin an 8-week series exploring some exercises in mind body connection with a small cohort. I think the ideal size is about 6 to 8 participants, but honestly, I feel flexible um, on navigating that group size. But um, we want to keep it small so that there's enough room for each participant to share. And I like to keep it all in one room and not use breakout rooms, which can work with larger groups. But for what this group is, it's like a shared talking circle where we are all present with each other as each person, brings themselves to the process. And so there's a pretty regular structure to each group that you'll get the hang of that starts with soft belly breathing and then moves into check-ins. And so for the people who decide that this is for them, they'll have a consistent group of people that they'll see every week to share about what is going on for them in the moment. And my role as a facilitator is to help direct the time and to introduce the exercises. But I will also participate as a human having my own experience too. And so in the 2 hour time that we have together, a fair bit of it is used with check-ins and making time for each participant to share. The other important element is the educational component, experiential education. And so each week there will be an exercise. Some of them are things like drawing or writing, moving to music, other types of meditations and visualizations. And sometimes those are relatively brief, maybe a few minutes, up to maybe 20 minutes or so of the experience. But then there's time for the group to all process or to share about what came up for them. So there is quite a bit of time to be in a state of listening, with 6 to 8, maybe up to 10 people. Only a small amount of the time is for each individual to be sharing, and most of the time is to be listening. But there really often are lots of lessons in other people's stories and just noticing what is coming up for each individual participant. And so mindfulness or meditation is an important element of the group. These are really kind of exploring self-care skills that really leads people to their own insights, and the group is kind of serving as witness, which really creates something pretty special. So I first learned about the Center for Mind Body Medicine and the framework for these through a friend of mine. Her name is Kat Lopez, and she has kind of a unique story in that she actually quit her residency training as a family doctor because she was so disillusioned with the system. And kind of remarkably, she began an apprenticing with a naturopathic doctor. And so she got her medical license out in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and kind of was learning how to practice medicine with more of a foundation closer to naturopathy. And so she knew about the Center for Mind Body Medicine, and when I looked it up, they were offering a training at Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California, and I signed up after completing my own residency. So that was in the fall of 2019, and then I guess I don't have these details written down in front of me, but I think I did the second phase of their training, which is the advanced version of their course, which was online. It was at the time of the pandemic in November 2020. And that was kind of what gave me the tool set to start leading the groups on my own through Zoom. And so I finished their training in November, December 2020, and then started my first group that we actually extended after the first 8 weeks. And I think we went 12 or 13 weeks just because we couldn't stop, we didn't want to stop meeting, and it was really a great way to connect and to be with people at that time. And since then, I've taken, I think, 6 or 7 rounds of people through, and it's always been on Zoom. I would love to do it in person someday. I think the logistics are can be a little bit harder, to find the time that works for people. Um, I chose to do Monday mornings because I don't work at the clinic on Mondays, and so it works for my schedule. And I'm hoping we can find a group, but uh, of people that this time works for. And I think there might be other times that I offer this same course format, probably both Zoom and in person. So, um, what else is important? The Center for Mind Body Medicine has a website that kind of describes what their philosophy, what their organizational philosophy is. I think it's been around since 1991. I would have to double check that, but it was founded by James Gordon, who's a psychiatrist affiliated with Georgetown, and the organization reaches all across the world, and they especially are interested in bringing these circles or these containers to areas of the world that are impacted by natural disaster, trauma, war, and so they have been in Israel and Gaza. They have been in Haiti after earthquake, and helping children that are facing that kind of intense trauma, helping adults. They were involved after some of the news items, newsworthy uh, tragedies of school shootings, and so I think the school is Brown or Towel. I can't quite remember, um, but they kind of went in as they brought in their whole team of trainers and trained like a whole community of leaders to teach that whole school these skills, to kind of help develop their resilience in the aftermath of that tragedy. So we in the course we talk more about some of the underlying science and the physiology of how it works, as but it remains pretty practical, and most of the time is making space for people to share, and also just offering the exercises and then having some room for people to talk about how they're integrating those exercises in their own lives. So it's a very practical kind of course, and it's honestly it's a lot of fun. I think for me, like having the place to check in, with this group, is something I enjoy, and hearing from others, it's like feeling deeply connected with a group of people, like is really energizing for me. So um, that's a bit of an overview. The last piece I wanted to address is just about the commitment. And because it is a closed group, once we start and we begin with the drawings, and the first group kind of gets to know each other, we don't add more people midway through. So if for some reason there was only 2 or 3 people starting, we might just have a small group this time, and I think that would be okay. Um, but one way, one tactical or strategic way of getting that commitment is having a price associated with it, and that has always been an area that's like sort of difficult for me to like navigate, um, because a healing circle, what this is, it feels like it kind of blurs the boundary between a professional offering and what feels like time with friends. And so I feel like I want to be generous and include people and have people participate, and I don't like the money piece to be a barrier. And so over the 6 or 7 cycles I've had it, I've kind of done different things, but I think at this point, I really am looking to have the experience. And so I think if people would like to make a contribution or donation towards my efforts of doing this kind of work, that would be appreciated. And I think, a price tag of $300 is appropriate for this like 8-week course. I think it's possible to discount that, or, or to negotiate what might work for each individual. But I don't want the financial part of it to stop anyone, prevent anyone from coming. And I feel like even bringing it up creates that energy that for me of my like scarcity mindset. Oh, are we going to have enough people come? But I'm just acknowledging that, and also want to say that that the um, that uh, that the group the reason for uh, that the reason for hosting it is really for me kind of to continue developing this part of what I want to be offering in the world, because my background is in medicine, and I really see this as one of the best ways to offer support around health. And just to clarify, like in this group, I'm not working as a doctor. We're not establishing a doctor-patient relationship. I am facilitating a group. So, between now and when the group starts, if you would like to be a participant, let's have a conversation and we can figure out, if this is something that is going to work for you, if you are feeling committed to being a participant, and if there is a donation that you'd like to make towards this effort. Um, so with that said, I am going to open it up for questions and answers from the folks who are live on the call with me, and then we'll wrap up the recording for today. And I will keep the call going for people who want to ask questions off the air. So thank you for listening. I see Janine's hand.
Yeah, and thank you for fulfilling just most of my questions. I am curious though, because it does say it would be the 8 weeks from 9:30 to 11:30 Central. For those who have a commitment at 11 o'clock, because I do run a financial agency and that just happens to be my Mindful Mindset Monday call. Um, are the calls recorded through the container that then the participants are able to listen to later if they do have conflicts every week for it?
That's a good question. And in the past, I have not recorded them, and that's really felt like the right decision. It really can feel pretty intimate at times with what is going on, and so I think it is best to not record. Um, and the 2 hours really, there's a lot of juice in them, and so I think it might feel hard to leave early. Um, I would love to have you there, and it's possible that we could shift the time from 9 to 11. That would just kind of depend on some other things, but um, let's follow up on that. Does that answer your question?
It does, but then it gives me another follow-up. Oh my gosh, I feel like my
Which,
life's growing right
which
now.
is fine. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I am curious then, Drew, similar to how this is done then, keeping the sacred container for the components of the shares. Would you, because again, I know you're saying you're stepping out of the facilitation, so it's not like we would see it as a doctor or any clinical role of it, but would that be possible? Because I don't want to have to move the container if it's already been set, but would that be a compromise of not necessarily recording the shares, but just in like the training and the techniques?
Because it's so integrated, I don't really think so. Yeah, and I'm not sure if you were asking this, but I will just say that I've just been working on this issue of who am I as a doctor, who am I as an artist, I guess, or who am I as like somebody who's interested in natural health, and like that Venn diagram, it keeps kind of shifting, and to some degree, I'm hoping that like the artist part of myself or like the host part of myself grows and eventually like generates revenue so that I'm not dependent on working in the system, and I can, really be there fully just in service, and not feeling like dependent on earning my money from that system. Um, and a part of that, I've had friends, people I've met through dance or whatever, who's like, "Oh, can I come see you as a doctor?" And at times I felt like, yeah, like it would be cool to like be the doctor for people in my community. And then sometimes I kind of ran into like, wow, like there's like a lot of like the ways of like holding like confidential information here, and it can be kind of weird to do that. And I had somebody approach me recently, like, "Oh, I want to talk with you kind of about natural health approaches to, an issue," and I would like to kind of create a container um, for myself to offer what I might call subtle medicine advice, which is different than I'm not sure if it's different than medical advice or not. I have to kind of get clear on that. In some way, like I think a big part of that is really um, not prescribing medicines, but really talking more about lifestyle. And so I haven't quite created that container, but I think these mind body skills groups are definitely like part of that same effort or that same field, if that makes sense. So that might go beyond what you were asking about, but wanted to share that too. All right. Jason, I do kind of want to put you on the spot. I don't know if it's a great moment for you, but before we end the recording, since I know you have experience with these groups, is there anything that you would want to let people know who are thinking about joining or about your experience as a participant?
Hmm. Yeah, that's fine putting me on the spot. I have no problem with that. As a former participant, kind of, want to give you a little bit of a testimonial. I got a lot out of your original group, because I was really in, the midst of my health coaching journey at the University of Minnesota, in the master's program. And I saw a lot of overlay between what you had learned from your mind body skills training and what I was actually doing, learning to lead group coaching and just learning it more about myself too, and the connection between the mind and the body. And I really got a lot out of all the activities that like the hands-on, activities that were kind of designed to, get, really just bring awareness to the connection between the mind and the body and all of the different life aspects that we go through, and over the journey of our life, what's going on now. And one in particular that I always stands out to me is the you do a genealogy thing where you map out your genealogy from your mother and father's side, which I got a lot out of personally. Just that one activity really elicited a lot of like deep self-reflection and introspection in my own life and my journey and how that's led up into, my life path and what I've gone through in my life. And so I think little activities like that, you know, we don't know what kind of major impact that can have on others. And I saw that have the impact on myself. And so I can see how it might have, some pretty significant impact on others. And so yeah, for anybody considering this group, I would just invite you to, yeah, be open to, just participating and deepening into, if you're in that space of like self-reflection of where you're at in life and where you want to go. I mean, really embodying and learning more about how our mind and bodies connect is a great place to start. So highly recommend. 5 stars out of 5 on the Amazon 5-star scale.
Awesome, Jason. You're hired. Lauren,
I'm just curious, what does embody mean? I may be new to kind of the term, and maybe in this container it means something. So I'm just curious.
that is a great question. It feels like it puts me a little bit on the spot to describe such a big, what can be such a big topic. Um, but I will start with just embodiment is about being present, in the here and now with all of the sensory input that is coming in. We have our five senses, our vision, smelling, taste, hearing, and tactile sense. And so we are getting tactile information from our feet and from our hands and from our back all the time. All this information is kind of coming in to our awareness, and many times our mind is can be really populated with thoughts, with chatter, with words, or with emotions, and so uh, embodiment is kind of returning to the present moment and being being able uh, to receive all that information and not getting lost in some of those loops that might be related to what's on our mind or maybe things from our past, but coming back to the present moment with all of that sensory information really being in our our awareness sort of um, like it's like clearing out some of the backlog of things so that it can really be present. And there's lots of ways of practicing embodiment, which I many times think of it as the arts. For some people, it's painting or drawing. For some people, it's dance or singing. A lot of times, getting into a flow is one way of coming into the present moment. And so, practicing embodiment can look like movement or creating art. And I think other people use the words embodiment in different ways, but that's kind of what it means to me. Um, are there other
Thank you.
yeah,
Just wanted to say
are there other questions before we wrap up the recording? I appreciate you all for being here and for listening. Again, please reach out to me if you're interested in participating. And we begin each group with a breathing meditation, and so we'll just end this part of the call just with a breath together. So I invite you to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Thank you. Until next time.